Thank you so much, Natasha. And of course, we'll keep it there at Nasrec with my colleague Vuyo Mvoko, who is standing by with Professor Booysen to continue with the analysis of this rolling coverage. Vuyo, very interesting to hear the Gauteng PEC saying they're not welded to an individual, that it's about waiting, seeing and hearing. It begs the question about what happens then at these branch general councils when they make a decision on which individual that they're going to vote for. Is there a mandate that is behind the choices, or is there simply an individual who seems to suit a particular, I don't know, direction in terms of where they want to take the politics?
So no one is welded to anybody. Get it, okay? Prof, I don't know what you make of that.
Wow, that was some advertorial and some effort to reclaim the branch historic origins of these votes, which is a long, long way back into the past by now. For some time now, and definitely these last few days at this conference, it's really been wheeling and dealing, horse trading in overdraft. And the branches and their mandates are very often long forgotten in this process. For example, there's been such a traffic today of slates circulating, instructions that are copied to people, to journalists and analysts, instructions by whoever is the political leader in this space to followers as to who to vote for, and especially if it comes higher up from provincial executive committees. And we even see a deluge of projected results surfacing. And it all depends as to how one anticipates the various provinces are going to split their votes between the different sets of candidates. So there are so many options, really a cacophony of options that we've seen today.
I didn't know that. I mean, part of your mandate when you are a branch or the delegate of any structure that's participating at conferences, listening to the others, not listen, be prepared to be persuaded.
Yes, that is definitely how they interpret those branch mandates that they received, and they now to negotiate leaders into positions of power that will hopefully be said to be acting to the advantage of the particular province, and so they will be motivating back to their constituencies how they've changed their votes and their voices, the voices that they received.
What, only after the fact?
After the fact, yes. There'll always be a way to rationalize political decisions.
But speaking of, all this, everyone, who has dared to express a view, reckon, their people are winning. Of course, this is something we've had from day one.
Yes.
From the moment we arrived here, the various slates of people representing the various people who ended up on the ballot paper claimed victory even before conference started. Yes. When
sees people throwing the signals, the hand language of how well the second term campaign is going, or how well Zweli Mkhize's campaign is going. So, and everybody is optimistic, even the ones who have basically, I think in the course of today, dropped out of the race, those ones who may have been splitting votes on particular slates. Of course, slates actually do not exist as they claim in this game, but it's very much slates cross-cutting with provincial mandates and people trying to get provincial persons into the mix of the top 7.
But people I think have, in the face of all these claims, some of them absurd, being made, people have resorted now increasingly hearing people resigning themselves to whatever outcome. And Zingiswa Losi earlier was talking about the importance of whoever emerges victorious, to think about the fact that it is not about the 4,500 delegates or so who are congregating here. At the end of the day, it's about the 60 million South Africans who are looking for better things to emerge on the back of this conference.
Yes, yes, one certainly hopes, wishes all the way that that would be and is foremost in delegates' minds. If one looks at, however, at the commissions that are currently taking place here at Nasrec, and there seem to be doesn't seem to be high levels of interest in the deliberations there, and acting in the best interest of South African citizens generally certainly has to start in showing those commitments to getting the best policy and considering the ways to implement those non-implemented policies, etc. We do not yet get a sense of that. So what we do get a sense of very strongly, as we've seen in the snippets of the organizational report that we've been able to see, is that they are, at best, the leadership struggles here are interpreted as ways to make the organization survive or not survive. That is foremost in delegates and conference voters' minds, along with the fact of making sure their own persons who can ensure that they will be rewarded for however they voted. Those people actually come to power. So it's personal patronage and personal political interest, plus hopefully some provincial balance in the eyes of these delegates. And those factors all feed into organizational sustainability. Organizational matters, organizational viability and sustainability take an inordinate amount of time of conference deliberations here.
In fact, I remember the finance minister, Inokodong, was speaking, a few days before conference, adamant that whoever emerges as the ANC leader after conference, people shouldn't be concerned about that, because at the end of the day, it's about ANC policies that would have to be pursued, which then begs the question: why is everyone then fussing about who will eventually emerge as the leader?
Yes, yes. There is a great amount of confusion between these imperatives that drive the delegates and the leaders generally at this conference, and the extent to which they have got an organization to protect and to protect a pretense to the outside world that this is all well, it's all about renewal, rejuvenation, etc. Whereas the organizational report talks about that inevitable, seemingly inevitable and accepted as inevitable, further decline.
Well, but what's interesting is that, we've seen this over the years. At the end of each conference, depending obviously on who wins and who loses, often it means the end of the political careers of many.
Oh, and that has been one of the most dramatic developments of the last day or two, and especially in the nominations early this morning. We almost definitely saw the end of the NDZ career, end of Lindiwe Sisulu career, where people just recognize they do not have the support, are not going to have the support, no prospects, and just to step back. So we've seen a few people, and not to mention Didi Mabuza, for example, and yes, people just stepping back and really throwing in the towel.
Of course, in the case of Didi Mabuza, as deputy president, he'll be fine, he'll be sorted. So I suppose you can't say the same about people like Lindiwe Sisulu, for example.
Yes, yes. No, it's definitely different cases, and some are very settled. Some definitely are so compromised, antagonistic to Ramaphosa at this stage, that should he still win, that it will be interesting to see how they operate in cabinet. Of course, if Ramaphosa, if he does win and continues his usual style, he would probably try to be a continuous compromiser, not to antagonize, not to be seen to be axing people who had opposed him in this round. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works. And of course, it can possibly contribute to further inaction, not ensuring that you have the best team that really can operate and make a substantive change for the interest of national governance.
But of course, I mean, it's not always or even often true that your adversaries are the ones who are weakening your hand. Very often it's actually your own allies, because you don't want to offend, because you have treated them with kid gloves. They are your allies after all. They are responsible for putting you, you know, where you would be. Then you tend to be soft on them. Isn't that often the case as well?
We've seen this in the case of the Ramaphosa regime very strongly. So quite a few, let's not name them tonight, but they are pretty well known already, that quite a few in his own camp have really been treading water, have not been operating anything except in organizational politics, and have not pulled their weight at all where they were deployed in government.
Very case in point is probably ESCOM. We have two bulls and one crawl. One responsible for the big state-owned enterprise that's responsible, that's our electricity utility, and the other one responsible for the country's energy needs on the other hand. And we've seen the result, well, at least partly. I mean, they are the reason there doesn't seem to be movement, because if they were decisive and were able to call a spade and actually beyond calling a spade, being able to move and actually deal with the country's energy needs, we probably wouldn't be where we are.
That problem of power and ESCOM really epitomizes the level of inaction that there has been in government. And yes, different policies, we know the direction to go, but it's just not implemented fast enough, often because there are vested interests, and vested interests by people who are in cabinet.
Let's leave it there for now, Prof. Professor Susan Booysen. Of course, we continue, in fact, I should say, the waiting continues. We haven't heard word yet as to whether the voting itself is now over. A short while ago, it was still continuing. There were still several provinces that were continuing to vote, and once all the provinces and every member and structure, every delegate and structure have actually voted, we were told earlier that they would need something like 4 hours at the very least to do the counting, and of course only announce the results after that. The SABC will be here the whole time, bringing you the very latest information we are able to get. For now though, I'm going to hand back to you, Tsepiso, in studio.
Thank you so much for that, Vuyo. We'll be back in just a moment with governance expert and political analyst, Professor William Kumeto, to talk a little bit more about some of these issues that you raised. We'll be talking about the quality of decision making. We'll be talking about corruption or the allegations thereof, of how it looms large on some of the candidates.